Have you ever wondered what would happen if N had the Absolute Solver program? He's already extremely strong despite the fact that he is so nice, but what if he had it instead of Uzi? We already know for sure that worker drones can use the Absolute Solver program whether they are infected or had it ever since birth, the prime examples being Doll, Uzi, and Sin. However, it's never proven nor disproven that a murder drone can become infected, but for the sake of this video, let's just assume that they can. First off, N would not be as lost as Sin was. He would have much more control of his solver since N is already nice. However, though N is not evil, he would be much more serious than he usually is, and would take fights a lot more seriously than usual, since his power would be immense. Think about it, N is likely stronger than max power solver Uzi, since he was able to pick her up and would not be faced at all when he looked relaxed, not showing even a hint of fear. And with N already being stronger and the Absolute Solver program on top of that, he would become a huge threat. V and J would not have the solver in this scenario, but they would probably comply with any order N gives them unless they want to be killed by him. During the pilot, N and Uzi originally fought J and V since the two were storming the worker drone colony and threatening Khan's life. But in this what if, N would tell them to stop before demonstrating his monstrous power and causing them to surrender. He could also easily destroy them, but knowing N, he probably would not do this unless he absolutely had to. No pun intended. But what next? Well, in episode 2, they would go to the colony to investigate the disappearance and would come across Sin, like how they normally did. Now for the argument whether or not N is stronger than Sin has been debated countless times, but in my opinion, N with the Absolute Solver program plus being enraged would either equal or surpass Sin in pure strength. And I think that Solver N would max out here, getting extremely angry because he would want to defend Uzi because she could almost be killed and would begin to fight her. Sin being no pushover, of course, would likely get a few good shots in on N, but in the end, N would come out on top and kill her. Winning this fight meaning that the threat of Sin no longer exists. That claim may make a few fans upset, but I stand by it. As for the rest of the episode, it would end just like how it originally did, but this time with a dead Sin. Episode 3 is where things start to get interesting. Remember, Sin is not the only solver wielder. Besides Uzi, there's Doll too, and her status of being good or evil is hard to tell. For starters, V would probably be tied up in the pod, just like how she originally was, but her attempt to escape would quickly be foiled by N, and he would leave her there while he goes to find Uzi, and then they would end up going to prom together. Once there, things would go much more normally. Well, maybe, because if you remember that Doll only wanted to crash the prom for the sole purpose of getting revenge on V for the murder of her parents. But with V being still in the pod, Doll would have no idea of her whereabouts. However, N would be there so that she could see him arrive with Uzi and would try to fight him so she can find where V is. But upon the start of this fight, she would quickly realize how N has the Absolute Solver just like her, and a much more powerful version of the Solver at that, and would quickly demonstrate just how strong he is. But unlike his fight with Sin, he would probably not kill her and actually spare her since she is not nearly the level of a threat that Sin was, and would ask Doll to help them rather than fight, and she would probably accept this knowing that N could destroy her at any moment. And they would all go to Doll's room like last time, but this time she would give them a key. And the episode would end just like how it originally did, but this time there will be no V. Next we have episode 4, Cabin Fever. The episode would start out just like how it originally did, with Khan showing Uzi the photos of her mom as well as the closet of all her predictions of the disassembly drones. N would be the only camp counselor since V is dead and he would not be as nice to her. However, he would not be rude either, just a little less over the top than he originally was. The episode would go pretty much the same. Uzi would go into the woods and investigate the cabins, and the camp activities would just go as they originally did. Uzi would likely still go on a rampage with her solver ability and start killing dozens upon dozens of classmates, and would easily stop her similar to how he originally did. I doubt that he would have to fight her since she did comply originally very quickly, and even if she doesn't comply, he could easily stop her by force. And he would counsel her just like last time. The episode would pretty much go the same as it did, just without V. As for episode 5, since it's mostly a memory, it doesn't really matter, and Sin's involvement would be impossible since she was killed early on by N in this scenario. And now we go to the final episode, episode 6, Dead End. They would meet up with Tessa trying to learn more about the underground elevator, and after that the key gets stolen by Doll. He would quickly cut her off and take the key from her, which would not force them underground like they originally were forced to. But they would still go anyway. But when they get underground, the sentinels will be there waiting for them. I have a feeling that Solver N can't be boot looped. Since Sin has the Absolute Solver, she probably made or controls the sentinels. It'd be kind of dumb if she made the sentinels and she could still be boot looped by them. So I think that both Uzi and N would be immune to this since they have the solver. So instead, N would fight the sentinel all on his own, using his Absolute Solver to tear them to shreds. But Tessa would quickly notice that N has the Absolute Solver too, and would be in complete and utter shock. However, his would be the most powerful and controlled she's ever seen. And in this what if, N became infected in the years following his last meetup with Tessa, so this would come as a complete shock to her. But if we remember, originally Tessa wanted En to kill Uzi, so her solver never becomes a threat in the level of sin. However, she loves En here and does not want him dead. We still question on how he even got the solver and what his plans are. And he will inform her that he managed to defeat Sin all on his own, so there's no longer any threat of her. She would be worried about Uzi losing control, but he would tell her that even if that were to happen, he could easily defeat her with no issue and get her under control. They would all go to the elevator with no issue because if there was any sentinels coming for them, En would take care of them easily. And that's as far as we can go with this series since we're still waiting on episode 7 to come out. But I'm going to take my theory of what will happen in episode 7 and try to conclude the series in my own headcanon. The elevator would go down and everyone would get out unharmed and find the underground castle. Once they go to investigate it, Yiva and Nori will open the doors just like in the teaser glitch released. But here's the thing, I think that Yiva and Nori would be mad at En since he is the murder drone. From their perspective, he is friends with V and she tried to kill Yiva, and I even think she tried to kill Uzi's mom as well, so they would both fight En immediately. Uzi would try to stop her mom from hurting En, but she would not listen, and this fight's outcome is kind of hard to predict since Yiva and Nori have a much more experienced solver, and they've had it a lot longer time and it's even closer to the original patient 0 of it. But En has so much potential and he is also a disassembly drone, which makes him a lot more powerful than a standard worker, and since now he takes the fights a little more seriously, he's even stronger than before, so I think that he would defeat them both before going on to explain that they need to work together to stop JC Jensen, and how En is no longer a bad guy. It's still hard to say what will happen after this since we don't know much about JC Jensen, so I think it would be safe to assume, at least for now, that this would end in a positive outcome, and having the absolute solver allows him to take out threats easily that he would otherwise struggle a lot more against, and he's also a lot more powerful since the solver influences mood, makes him way less happy, allowing him to take fights a lot more seriously than ever before, and is already strong, and having the solver definitely helps out in the long run. As to whether or not En would use the solver or even access it to begin with is unknown. Some say that he can't, citing the fact that Murder Drone Core can't be infected, and that's never really been stated. It's just headcanon at this point. But I think that he will never get it since the show wants to have the ability to be unique to Uzi. But let me know down in the comments if you think En having the solver would result in a positive or negative outcome. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and click on the video here.